So there's a problem in some terror management theory studies, especially some of the replication studies, where they forget to include a substantial interval between the reminder of death and the opinion test. So you may know that by implementing what's called mortality salience, reminding somebody of death in some way, you tend to get a change in their opinions about things. Whatever their beliefs are, they tend to basically increase their adherence to those beliefs. And I'm not going to go through all the explanation of why this happens. It suffices to say that death basically represents being ephemeral, meaningless, unimportant, whereas cultural life and the beliefs that we have around that cultural life and our subscription to that particular culture that we are part of, well, that represents the opposite: meaning, importance, durability. And so those beliefs are strengthened, even if slightly more than usual, after a reminder of death. Now, how long do you need to wait between your reminder of death and your opinion about something slightly increases? In other words, the adherence to that belief slightly increases. Now, it used to be thought that 2 to 6 minutes would suffice, and you may see a little bit of a change, and especially in people that are what some scientists have called deniers, like Robert Trivers did actually he talked about an experiment where you can divide self-deception styles into what he called deniers and projectors. This has to do with an experiment with galvanic skin response, where people had to detect whether the voice in a recorder was theirs or somebody else's. Some people would project their own voices, others would deny that the voices were theirs, and so on. And so the people that were more reactive, that could deny things faster, are the ones that show the highest reaction to all stimuli. So you have people similarly in death reminders, or rather related to terror management theory studies, who are more reactive and can hide, or rather push, those thoughts of death into the unconscious faster, and thereby show you that opinion change or increase in adherence to their beliefs in a shorter period of time. However, for most people, it takes longer, and the idea now is to really do at least 10 minutes, preferably 15, maybe even more. And that includes, obviously, distractions, a few tasks. You can't be, reminded of death and then you sit there, do nothing, because you're going to be thinking about it. You want to distract the mind, play some cards, or, have people play some games, or do something else. And those thoughts of death will now recede into the unconscious, and you'll get that reaction. Remember that the actual theory says that all of our cultural beliefs, not, I would say not 100%, but a lot of our cultural beliefs have some type of death-denying function. And this has to do with the degree to which they allow us to feel we are part of something that transcends the elements I mentioned earlier of lack of meaning, of being ephemeral, unimportant, and so on. And to that extent, beliefs are going to produce that type of effect. Of course, there are also distractions, beliefs and things that may not necessarily increase that perception of us being valuable, but they have that inertia where they keep us focused on something narrow, distracts the mind from death and from unpleasant thoughts. And if you already have other beliefs that are helping you deal with anxiety, with death anxiety, those distractions are going to sort of like push you along, by implication allowing you to stay afloat, just by going forward in life. So once again, at least 15 minutes, and I say this because there's a few studies that I just read, one in Spain, another one in Norway, where they say, gee, well, we prove that there's no effects, but then I went to the study. I even emailed the individual in the case of the Norwegian study where he said, well, the distraction took about a minute. In other words, the interval between the reminder of death and the opinion test took a minute or less, actually, 45 seconds. Well, that's not enough. You need 10, 15 minutes, maybe more. So unless you do that, you're not going to be able to see. Now, there are people who say that these effects of the reminders of death may last even longer, maybe hours, maybe even days. I know in my own subjective experience that the times that I've done what's called Tibetan death meditation, where I'm thinking about my own death, maybe I think about my own dead body there, or even my family members, mother, whatever it is. It's a very tough type meditation. The next day, I mean, I felt different. I felt more reactive. I felt more emotional. Certain beliefs were certainly, much more, the violation of my beliefs was much more hurtful. So I would say that, in fact, these things may last a long time, depending on the intensity upon which they are implemented. Now, a side thought here, which is that there are also subliminal death reminders, and that would be something like you're on the computer and there's a flashing of the word death that you don't even see, a very, very fast flash, and that it's been found also increases your worldview defense. But I would guess not as strongly as actually explicitly thinking about death and then allowing that massive reminder to recede into the unconscious. I would think that is actually a stronger thing.